I'm John Kaiser at the Metals Investor Forum in Toronto, June 12, 2022. I'm speaking with Bob Wares, CEO of Brunswick Exploration. Bob, welcome to Toronto.
Thank you, John. Pleased to be here.
Bob, there have been a couple lithium waves. The first was 2008 to 2010. The second sort of started 2015, 2018. Brunswick has only recently entered the lithium space. Why did you only start now with lithium?
We actually started looking at the lithium space about 4 years ago, and then we did an internal study to determine whether mining spodumene, because that's the real potential in Eastern Canada. We don't have any lithium clays, we don't have any salars. We wanted to establish whether just mining spodumene was economic. And until 14 months ago, the answer was no. Your typical, take a decent grade spodumene pegmatite will run about 1.5% lithium oxide. The standard spodumene concentrate runs 6%, so it's a fourfold concentration process, not including recoveries. So basically, we were looking at $350 US a ton of spodumene concentrate for production. And then where do you ship it? Well, there are no lithium processing plants in Canada, or only Livent has one in Carolinas. We pretty much would have to ship it to China, so add $150 US a ton to get it from northern Quebec to China. We're looking at $500 a ton, and that was the price of basically market spot price of lithium spodumene concentrate about 18 months ago. Now we're looking at $2,500. So everything's changed. With the increase in both lithium carbonate and spodumene concentrate prices, it now makes sense to just mine spodumene and export it. Not what you want to do. What we need in Canada are lithium processing plants to get that plus value into the carbonate market. But barring that, just mining spodumene now makes sense. And so we decided, all right, now that we have the economics, there probably is going to be some price relaxation, but the lithium deficit on the global scale is so high, and we believe that will persist, that we don't think there'll be that much price correction. So I'm confident lithium, certainly spodumene concentrate, will probably remain above $2,000 a ton US. And so it's time to get into the lithium space. It makes sense at this point.
Mm-hmm. Now, Brunswick has been on a staking spree in Quebec, in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, even Newfoundland, based largely on archival research.
Correct.
Now that you have this substantial land package, what are you going to do to upgrade it to drill targets?
Basically, prospecting. Most of our targets are well exposed. We actually see the pegmatite outcrops. So lithium-bearing pegmatites only occur as an enriched phase of what is known geologically as S-type pegmatites. And so we've staked large volumes of S-type pegmatites. We now have about 125 in our inventory of pegmatites that are 900, and the largest one is actually 18 kilometers long. This particular one in the Abitibi is gigantic. And this is the environment where you can find large spodumene deposits. A lot of spodumene showings are sitting in pegmatite dikes that are only 3 meters wide. Well, you can't make a mine out of that. You'll never get the tonnage. So if we hope to find another Greenbushes in Canada, we have to target large pegmatitic system, which is what we've done. And so in all cases, they're relatively well exposed, a lot of outcrop, and it's a question now of testing the pegmatite to see if it's fertile. If it's not, you walk away. Because these pegmatites are not just enriched in lithium, they're enriched in cesium, tantalum, rubidium. And so these are elements that are detectable with the XRF guns. Unfortunately, lithium is not, so you can't use an XRF gun to directly measure lithium, but you can detect all the other secondary elements. and then establish if your pegmatite is fertile. And once you've identified a fertile pegmatite, still doesn't mean that it'll contain lithium, but at least it's got the basic characteristics that it can. So then you focus your exploration on that. And as soon as you see visible spodumene or lepidolite or pollucite, then you've got drill targets. And in most cases, there's subvertical dikes. They're just sheets of plywood, very easy to drill, very straightforward.
Now, last year, about 100,000 tons of lithium metal was produced according to the USGS at the average price last year of $8.50 or so for lithium carbonate per pound. That was worth about $18 billion. Companies like Rio Tinto have put out data saying that if the EV replacement of ICE cars is going to become a reality, we're going to need 8 to 10 times more lithium supply than we are getting now. And if you
Right.
keep something like a $10 price, we're talking about a nothing burger market from a decade ago being $100 to $200 billion a year metal market. That puts it into the big leagues. And
Yep.
I've seen your staking activity. You were surprised that there was lots of ground still available. You've mentioned that there is places it's very difficult to see, but when there's incentive, people will look harder. And all of this reminds me, 30 years ago, early 90s, when Chuck Fipke announced he had found diamondiferous kimberlites in the Northwest Territories. And,
Yep.
within like 3 months, an area the size of Switzerland was staked, and then eventually diamond exploration spread to the rest of Canada,
Yep.
around the world. It was a huge thing. So I'm sensing that something similar with Eastern Canada, which has this incredible geological potential for
Correct.
these lithium-enriched pegmatites, could also become a boom with hundreds of juniors all toiling in the wilderness, doing what you're already setting up to do.
Yep.
In what way is searching for kimberlite pipes similar and different from searching for these enriched pegmatites?
Well, kimberlites have the advantage of having indicator minerals that are refractory, which means they survive the glacial process and get dispersed. So that includes, the G10 garnets, the chrome dioxides, the spinels, and those are the techniques that Chuck Fipke used largely to trace the indicator minerals all the way up to Lac de Gras over many years, and that works well. Unfortunately for lithium pegmatites, to my knowledge, they don't contain refractory minerals, particularly that could survive the glacial process. I mean, spodumene is a fragile felspathoid. Pyroxene, and I would suspect that it would just basically get crushed, ground, and disseminated very quickly in a glacial and basoglacial environment. You don't have any indicator garnets. Tantalite perhaps, but the tantalite content, or even an enriched LCT pegmatites, is maybe 500 ppm. It's very low. So I would guess that trying to detect a lithium-bearing pegmatite using till geochemistry or heavy minerals would be very, very difficult. They don't respond to geophysics at all either. They're not magnetic, they're not conductive, they're not dense. Maybe radioactive, but again, if they're sitting under 10 meters of till, no radioactivity. So your best bet is to focus on areas that have good exposure, a lot of outcrops, and just zap those outcrops. And that's the fastest way to do it. There's no doubt in the Canadian Shield, many pegmatites that are hiding under till, but I just don't see how we're going to find them. I mean, 5 meters of sand is enough to completely bury a lithium pegmatite. I don't think you would ever know it's there.
So, Fipke made the famous statement, he got it all, and it was sort of an onion layer type staking pattern that he had as he figured out the extent of his kimberlite cluster. But what you're saying suggests that you probably wouldn't say you got it all, but you probably got all that can be found.
Not even true.
No?
We have only started looking at Ontario, tremendous potential in Ontario. And no, the Canadian Shield geology again, lithium pegmatites only occur in one type of geological environment. That's fairly easy to identify. But there are large areas of questionable environments where I just don't have the data to figure out whether this is a new area that need to be addressed. And because the data is not in the Quebec or Ontario database, you have to go do field checks. But they're easy field checks to do. You're looking for 2 microgranites. You're looking for signs of anatexis, et cetera, et cetera. These are things that are easy to identify, and you can open up a whole new region just by doing your field checks. Having said that, in my opinion, you're limited by road networks, electricity infrastructure. Mining a lithium pegmatite producing spodumene concentrate, you're going to be shipping tens if not hundreds of thousands of tons of material. You need a road network or a rail network. You can't be in the middle of nowhere. It's the same problem with base metals. In this day and age, the cost of developing mines like that in areas that have no infrastructure is astronomical. It's not like gold. Gold, worst case scenario, you can pour your own array bar and fly out.
Yeah.
You can't do that with base or industrial metals or battery metals. You need road networks. So James Bay's got a great road network. All of our staking in the Abitibi, James Bay, and North Shore is within 50 kilometers of existing roads and power, and that's very important. I could think of 2 areas in northern Quebec, 500 kilometers from nowhere, that also have the right geological environment, but it's nonsense to go out there. It's just too far. Southern Ontario is great. Well, more or less Southern Ontario, basically from Dryden, Kenora through the Thunder Bay, going off to Kapuskasing. The Quetico Belt's got tremendous potential, and still a lot of open ground there. So, and a very decent road network. So that's another excellent area to work in.
So during Rare Earth Mania, which ran from 2009 to 2012, one of the concerns that people had was, how much thorium, a radioactive material, is present in the rare earths, and that became an issue for, who was going
Certain
to crack
deposit.
it,
Yeah.
and that, and from not too long ago, the Hermosa Taylor discovery, which you were involved with, some short-selling syndicate floated this idea, you have a manganese content in there that the smelters won't want, so therefore your project's dead. In the case of these spodumene concentrates, are there any sort of deleterious elements that you do not want to see that should actually be reported as part of disclosures during drilling, so that when we see something big, we know, but it's got this fatal flaw?
Right. S-type pegmatites also produce certain types of uranium deposits. Rossing in Namibia is the biggest one that's all located in similar pegmatites, and that is a uranium, very large, low-grade uranium deposit. So it's theoretically possible that you would have uranium or thorium concentrations in your spodumene deposit. You just have to analyze it. Manolo and Greenbush don't have any significant uranium or thorium. Babushi does not, so none of the deposits in the James Bay area do, but it does not mean that it's impossible. So just out of good ESG practices, you should analyze for uranium, thorium to ensure that your eventual mine site won't be, there's no risk of radioactive mineral spread to the environment out of your mining operation. It's not just at the concentrate level, just mining the rock in your tailings, you could potentially end up with uranium, thorium. So, and unfortunately, if there were significant concentrations, I would guess it'll probably kill the project. You'll just never get it permitted. But there isn't a single spodumene pegmatite deposit in the world, to my knowledge, that has deleterious uranium or thorium.
And is there anything else that the refineries do not want
Oh,
to see?
they don't want to see any iron. Spodumene can accommodate a certain amount of iron, and it's going to be processed. They'll still buy it off of you, but like any other smelter or refinery, they'll charge you penalties. But that goes into the offtake agreement, and I don't have numbers on the type of penalties that are charged for that. The ideal spodumene has less than about 1,000 ppm iron it's gray, it's not apple green. That's what you want to see.
You want to see apple green.
No, you want to see white.
Oh,
gray.
okay, white.
Yeah, yeah,
Not,
no
not the
iron.
green. Okay,
That's right.
so iron colors as,
Green.
discolors it as green.
Yeah.
Now, Eastern Canada has had lithium mines or attempted mines in the past, and a knock against the idea of Lithium Mania 2.0 is there was Canada Lithium, which developed the Quebec Lithium project or redeveloped it north of Val d'Or. And then there was Nemaska and Whabouchi in that 2015 to 19 cycle that also went bankrupt.
Yeah.
Were there special circumstances that made those fail? How, or do we have to fear that this is going to be like a endless cycle of lithium failures?
Well, again, the market price for lithium had a big influence, as you know. It was the first one, the second one were dead cat bounces. But I think this time it's for real. With the explosion in the EV market, I think strong lithium prices are here to stay. And in the case of Canada or Quebec Lithium, they were bogged down. Well, that's a good example of an iron-rich spodumene. So that takes away, obviously, part of their revenue. There was also the mill, to my knowledge, was badly designed. And thirdly, most of that deposit consists of a dike swarm of narrow dikes. So you end up with a lot of mining dilution in the mining process. Not really what you want. The ideal lithium deposit is like Greenbushes. It's just a one fat pegmatite loaded with lithium, with virtually little dilution. Whabouchi is a good solid lithium pegmatite that wouldn't have little dilution. But in the case of Nemaska, it was the cost overruns and the declining price that basically killed the project.
Just bad timing.
Bad timing, but they had, well, as $400 million cost overrun on their capex, which was pretty much a killer. Their financial structure, it was mostly debt. It was very fragile, and when they ran into the overruns, it basically blew up. So probably a stronger financial structure to the debt financing Nemaska, they might have survived it. But when your cost overrun runs to 25-30%, it's tough. It's and in an ascending market that would have been fine, but they got caught also in the declining market. So that was unfortunate.
So there were, thanks to Tanko and Greenbushes, world-class scale pegmatites. All these pegmatites that were sort of found, documented in Eastern Canada, and about which academic papers were written by people like Fred Brakes, Peter Cerny, and even Dave Truman, who recently passed away. How valuable is that scientific legacy that was generated as part of this whole sort of Ontario Geological Survey and
very
other
valuable.
surveys for lithium explorers such as you right now?
No, it's very valuable because that's at the stage of understanding pegmatites, the various type of pegmatites that exist. I mean, all types of granite can generate pegmatites, right? But there's only one kind of granite that generates pegmatites that can lead to lithium deposit. So segregating the various pegmatite types was a huge contribution. And now we know exactly what to look for in terms of identifying the proper granite type, the proper geological environment, and the type of pegmatites, which are called S-type, 2-mica pegmatites, in order to identify regions that have potential for enriched systems that contain lithium. So you can go through the literature very quickly and say bad pegmatite, good pegmatite, and then in the field of good pegmatite, then focus your efforts. So, and that's very well described in the literature. Canadian Mineralogist special volume, I think it's 15, is totally devoted to pegmatites. If you want to understand, that's good reading right there. There's an excellent paper published by the USGS on exploration for spodumene-bearing pegmatites. That's also excellent article. And one very good article that was published in CIM, Exploration Geology, about 8 years ago, entitled Exploration for lithium pegmatites in the Superior Province. That's a key paper as well, very useful.
Now, I'm optimistic that the search for lithium-enriched pegmatites in eastern Canada could become an educational gateway for younger generations, such as millennials, to discover the junior resource sector. And of course, my generation, who really never cared much about lithium, we're all going to be curious. We don't want to read a paper with polysyllabic words and things like that. Are there any publications that are kind of like, yes, or that are like, you know, lithium pegmatites 101 that you can think of that we can steer ourselves to? And
actually, the British Geological Survey has an, I will send it to you. It's a Lithium 101 paper that basically describes ABCs of hard rock lithium. Very useful.
Oh, excellent.
And yeah, watered down. So I would certainly recommend that.
I'll track it down and see they have an unrestricted online link and make it available
there you go.
on my website.
Yeah.
Well, I've been talking with Bob Wares of Brunswick Exploration in Toronto. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, John. Always a pleasure.
Great conference.